Hiya Stephen, thanks for the footage. Thanks for purchasing the online lesson. Just before we begin with my take on your swing and where I think you should go within the system, just touching on a few things in your email. Obviously, low point's not a major issue, playing off a handicap of 3, which I fully expect. Reading between the lines, I'd say potentially you get some low point issues with longer clubs on occasion when you're struggling with the direction the most. Direction, however, is your biggest battle, as you said in your email. Interesting that one or two coaches have advised you to take the club straight back. You do bring it inside, the club rolls inside. The hands definitely don't come inside enough, and I'll go through this with you during this critique and offer some insights into areas that you want to focus on in regards to improving your technique within the system and improving your overall shot pattern. So a lot of lines on the screen here. Obviously, red line down the line and yellow line down the line are the two playing references that we use, which is through the belt and through the elbow. Ideally, we'd want to see the butt of the club on the red line at setup. You can see yours is slightly above that red line. The higher the handle, the more the club is encouraged to sort of take an inward path, and the more the hands tend to work upwards and therefore outwards in the takeaway. So ideal for getting the club on the inside, but getting the club on the inside is certainly not something that you have difficulty with. So I would rather see you initially place the butt of the club more towards the belt line, lowering the handle a little bit, which in turn would produce a slightly more tilted appearance in the hips and make the spine appear a little bit more over the ball as the handle lowers. The neck would also follow, the eyes would be looking down at the ball a little bit more, so from face on we would see much less of your face and a little bit more of the top of your head. So just a little lowering of the handle at setup, which in turn will have a knock-on effect to the posture, which will also help with some other things that I'm going to go over now within your swing. So first of all, when we look at the swing from down the line, initial move that I would want to see, I'd want to see the hands and the shaft on the red line, so on hand plane line going through the belt. I'd then want to see the hands trace that line until the shaft's parallel with the ground, maybe slightly after. See, in your case, the hands work up and the club works in. So the handle working up and the club working in. In doing that, when you look at it from face on, it's making it nigh on impossible for your lead shoulder to work downwards enough, which would be on the purple arrow, and your lead shoulder tends to work to level. And the forward bend is maintained a little bit during the takeaway. So you look at the side bend that you've created between the two centres, which is the red dots, is slightly away from the target. From P1 to P2, maybe P3, this side bend to the right should become a side bend to the left. And with yourself, this side bend to the right is maintained for too long. And again, lead shoulder working very level is typical of somebody who rolls the club on the inside. Another thing we see when we look from down the line is we see the right leg straightening too much too soon and the right hip working behind you at too great a rate. And again, that's something that you could put your focus on, but you don't really need to. Again, it's a byproduct of hands working up, club working in. So too much rolling of the club. And the other thing we see there now is rather than the shoulders turning at 90 degrees to our initial forward bend or our inclination to the ground, the lead shoulder's gone very high rather than being on this sort of 90 degrees to the forward bend. Lead shoulder's a little bit too high. Right elbow is below the level of the left elbow, when viewed from face on. At P3 we can only see one arm. I'd want to see the right arm a little bit more visible at this point. I'd want to see the lead shoulder working down more at this point. I'd want to see less of your face at this point. And I'd want to see the hip working behind you at a slightly reduced rate. So I still want to see the hips turning, but I don't want to see them turning as much as soon. This all in all results in a top of the back swing where you tend to overflex the arms a little bit. So you get a little bit narrow and you get a little bit across the line. The actual plane of the swing, the position the butt of the club is in at that point, is very appropriate. So we should work up the red line and then elevate onto the yellow line. And we want to look at doing that in the most efficient manner possible. You stay centered, courtesy of the hips sagging forward towards the target a little bit, which is why the knee action doesn't look quite as tight as it should. This left knee sagging forward just a little bit more than would be ideal. In the downswing, the degree or the rate at which you thrust forward with the hips is excessive. The lead knee at P5 should be 2 inches outside the lead ankle. You're getting a little bit more than that at that point. It should then go a further inch outside the lead ankle by delivery, P6. And again, you can see here that we're substantially ahead of that lead ankle by the time we get to P6, which is causing the centre of the pelvis to move too far forward too soon, which is causing the head to potentially drop back. Certainly the club to get stuck inside. So the more we drive the hips forward, the more inside the club gets. And that results hitting out excessively, high exit, right shoulder getting too low too soon, high rate of closure. Whenever you've got a high exit and a high rate of closure, it makes for a colourful round of golf. There's some other little things in there in the finish that we can tidy up in subsequent sessions, but that's my overall take on your swing. So too much rolling of the club early in the piece, forward bend being maintained a little bit too much for too long, and then too much driving of the hips. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to focus a little bit more heavily on your down the line view and give you some feels and images that are appropriate to the changes that I want you to make down the line. The footage that I'm going to get up now for you is not necessarily the model, but it certainly demonstrates some nice pieces in regards to what you need to apply to your swing at this moment in time. So if we take a little look at Charlie on the left versus yourself, and we're going to focus primarily on P1, the setup, and then move into P2, which is when the shaft's parallel with the ground. So predominantly setup and takeaway at this stage. Your eyes are out, Charlie's are down. His handle is more on the belt line or through the pelvis. Your handle is sitting above the belt line. Your hips are less hinged than his, and he has a slightly greater inclination to the ground than we see with yourself. Now if you lower the handle so that it points at the belt buckle, all the other things would change. So if you think handle down and eyes down, this would tidy up your P1 dramatically and make it much more appropriate for the next move that I want to discuss with you. So at P1, lower the handle, lower the chin or lower the eyes. During the takeaway, I would describe your hands as being out and your club as being in. If we watch Charlie's takeaway, his hands work in more and his club stays out more. Now in doing that, we also see some differences in the rate at which the trail leg straightens and the condition of the shoulders, the tilts of the shoulders, the positioning of the elbows relative to one another, etc., etc. But the catalyst for this is from a more appropriate setup where the handle's lower and the chin's down. I want you to feel like and rehearse the image that you see on your right hand side. So we've got the hands in and the club out, rather than the hands out and the club in. Whenever you work on more hands in and club out, you see a dramatic change in the tilts of the shoulders and the way the right leg works. If the right hip works behind you too quick and the right leg straightens too quick, you lose the tilts up in the upper half and in the pelvis. The right leg should straighten incrementally throughout the backswing, allowing the hips to turn on a tilted angle and allowing that lead shoulder to continue to work down. So when you're filming your swing from down the line in the short term, the two images that we need to change are P1, we want the handle lower and the chin down. And then we want to change P2, rather than having the hands out and the club in, we want the hands in and the club out. So if you work along those sort of those clear checkpoints, you'll find it starts to encourage certain feels that are appropriate for you and that are unique to you. So I'm not going to tell you how this is going to feel. I'm just going to give you some checkpoints to work on. I would also feel this is just going forward in the backswing. Top of the backswing, just feel like you control the arc a little bit more. Feel like it's more of a 3/4 feel to the top of your backswing. If I look at those two swings, obviously yours is slightly longer, but I also feel that Charlie's got a little bit more rigidity in his arms. So maybe consider the over flexing of the arms. Much easier to achieve that solidity when you have a much better takeaway. You're in a more appropriate position to do so. If we now take a little look at your face on, and I'll give you some more ideas on what I want you to be focusing on from face on. Okay, so from face on, I really like the setup. I like the foot flare. I like the pelvis forward. We see it push forward a little bit more than with Robert Rock on the right hand side. What I would say is the more you push the pelvis towards the target, the more side bend you're going to create. If you have more side bend and a pelvis forward and then drive hard during transition, you're going to move the swing direction more out to the right. The right shoulder's going to drop sooner and you're going to start to have push, hook, overdraw, potential low point with longer club tendencies. So just bear that in mind. It's nice to have the pelvis forward, but don't be excessive with it. And certainly keep your eye on your side bend, your axis tilt at P1. So we don't want the angle between the two centres getting too extreme. Just keep your eye on that. But it's fine. You're fine where you are. The move that we talked about from down the line, or the changes that we discussed down the line, are evident in this image as well. We can see how much less of Robert Rock's face we can see versus yourself. So you look like you're very much sort of head up, whereas Rocky looks like he's face down to the golf ball. Viewed from down the line, his handle is on the belt line, if not slightly lower. Only fractionally, but certainly never gets above the belt line. He's got more of a chin down, shoulders tilted forward, pelvis tilted forward, etc. So the changes that you make from down the line, the lower handle and dropping the head a little bit, keeping the chin down, will change the image here at P1. It will also then make it easier for the lead shoulder to work downwards in the early part of the swing. So we see with yourself, lead shoulder to trail shoulder. The differential isn't as great. This is nigh on impossible if you roll in the golf club. So with Robert, we're seeing the club roll behind him less. We're seeing the hands come in and the club stay out. And as a result, we're seeing some changes in the ability to work the lead shoulder down. So the idea of shoulder down is fine. It's a good observation, but it's not something that's necessarily possible if you roll the club too much in the takeaway. We can already see the tilt in the shoulders, starting to turn the hips in a slightly more tilted manner than with yourself. So these changes are all about adding some tilt to your turn. When we get to P3, we can see again that the turn is on a more tilted angle. Right shoulder's higher than the left, and his right arm is more visible than we see. We see your right arm underneath here, whereas we see his more on top. And that's a result of the shoulders turning on a more tilted angle versus a more level angle. Your lead shoulder's working across and down slightly. His lead shoulder's working inwards and downwards in equal amounts. So there's a little bit more side bend in that position. But again, it's evident, or it's a result of the way largely you take the club back. During the transition, the main area to consider is the amount at which you drive forward. So we can see with Robert, P5, 5.5, lead knee just outside lead ankle. So P6 goes a little bit more outside the lead ankle. With yourself, drives really hard, a little bit too much thrust into the pelvis, a little bit too much hip slide, coming in too soon. Lead knee way out in front of the lead ankle, going further out front of the lead ankle, resulting in a right shoulder that gets a little bit too low, a little bit too quick. Now as we come through, what we see with Robert is that lead knee straightens gradually through the hip. As the lead knee straightens gradually through the hip, the belt buckle starts to raise, the pelvis comes out of its forward bend, and the turning aspect of the golf swing is more continuous. So when the right arm's parallel with the ground, the chest and the belt buckle are both pointing at the target, and the turning rates are very good. With yourself, we see the flex in the lead knee maintained a little bit too long. This is causing you to hit out. This, allied to other things that you do in the swing, causes you to swing out a little bit too excessively and can result in you not turning the corner down at the bottom in quite the appropriate manner. This leads to swing directions that are out to the right and club face closure rates that are too high. So we need to consider what the lead knee does through the hip in regards to the overall shot pattern, so that we can tidy things up as you come in through impact. In order to do that, what I want you to do is a drill where you hit hard and stop quick. So you're going to make the takeaway changes that we discussed. So P1, eyes down, handle down. P2, hands in, club out. So that's the Charlie Wee image. And then when you hit the golf ball, I want you to hit the ball as hard as you normally do, but stop at chest height. Now, in order for you to stop at chest height, so the image that you see Robert in there on the right, you're going to have to keep the arms on the torso. In order for you to keep the arms on the torso, the hips are going to have to continuously move, the chest is going to have to continuously move and continuously turn through the hip. And in order for that to happen, you're going to have to use the lower body differently. So you're actually using the exercise or using the task of stopping quick, stopping at chest height, to reverse engineer the leg action that you want. The more you stop quick, the more appropriate the leg action will become, the more you'll turn the corner, and the less push and hook tendency you will tend to have. If you're out on the golf course and you start suddenly throwing the odd block or hook in there, this is a very good tool and very good exercise to just take a little bit of hook out of it and get you around the golf course on that particular day. So we've covered a lot there, obviously, in regards to my observations, but the changes that you need to apply and the focus points for now are eyes down, handle down at P1, hands in, club out at P2, hitting hard and stopping quick, so stopping by chest height when hitting the balls. When you're practicing in this manner, you'd expect to see the push diminish quite rapidly. You may find that you occasionally pull the golf ball or pull draw it until the hand action starts to calm down and you start to synchronise your moves a little bit more in a little bit more appropriate manner. Don't worry about that too much. That's fully expected in this instance. Just keep working on the drills, keep the focal points that we just discussed, and I'm sure you'll see your ball flight tighten up tremendously in a very short space of time. If you've got any questions regarding what I've just discussed with you, feel free to contact me via email. And like I say, if you want to film some footage just to make sure you're doing it right, feel free to send it across via email. Good luck, thanks for making contact, and I look forward to watching you progress over the coming months.